Okay, let me just take you through this map. I want to show you the coming insurrection. Remember, we started over here with France and England and Italy and Greece all on fire, right? We've been telling you about the coming insurrection that is happening all in Europe, all across Europe. They've been protesting out in the streets and setting things on fire and destroying things, and it's all laid out in the coming insurrection. I have told you that this is a global movement. Could you play this out with me and just humor me for a second? Here we have Egypt. It started in Tunisia. Tunisia then leapfrogged Libya, went right over here to Egypt. But the fires are starting here as well. But we see them here. This is already in revolution and flipped. This is in revolution. I want you to look where Israel is. Right here. And Israel, the Gaza Strip, is on fire. You have any idea, this strait, how much commerce is done through here? You also have this little area. All the oil from the UAE, everything flows here. This is Iran. Play this out with me. So it jumps from here, starts fire here and here. Then, if the Muslim Brotherhood and the radicals would take over, like they did in 1979, I'll show you in a minute, it's exactly what happened. Oh no, this is all moderate stuff. If it happens over here, then we not only have a problem with Israel, but Saudi Arabia is in trouble. Because remember, Saudi Arabia is also not a friendly place. Riots will start here. Iraq will be squeezed. Syria, Jordan will fall. Who will stand with the United States? Who will stand with Israel? Because this is Sunni and this is Shiite. You have Hamas, and Hezbollah. Hezbollah has got to cause more chaos here. They will clearly go into Iraq where we are, and the squeeze begins. This will be on fire. This is already on fire. This is on fire. This is on fire. And it's riots all along. So now you have the entire Middle East being pushed by Iran and Saudi Arabia, basically, if it remains. They'll drag these guys out at any time and kill them all. These guys have to be freaking out. Now let me go the other direction. Let me go here. This is Africa, the tip of Africa. Here's Egypt, Libya, Tunisia. What's next to Tunisia? Algeria, also on fire now. The riots are starting here. Morocco is on fire. What's across from Morocco? Spain, connected to France and Germany and Italy, also on fire. And Greece, also on fire, which brings you right back here to Turkey. The entire Mediterranean is on fire. More than that, it's not just the surrounding countries of the Mediterranean. It also spreads up here. You have the UK and Ireland already with riots in the street. You have Russia with a bombing. Well, now let's see. Let's play this through. What do you think happens? These two collide. They, quite honestly, they could make us collapse financially. Just these two colliding. Let alone if this is on fire as well. Are our forces there? What do we do? This is colliding. We're pouring all of our money into here and trying to keep things stable. China pushes this direction. Here's China. Pushes this direction and just says, knock it off, guys. These guys are pushing this direction. This is all pushing up into the middle, into the Mediterranean, into Spain. This becomes a caliphate. This becomes China dominant. This becomes a Muslim caliphate. If they think Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, Egypt, Libya, possibly Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Turkey, are now some sort of a Muslim caliphate, if anyone begins to think that that is a chance, what happens to the overwhelming radical population of the UK, of radical Islamicists? What happens? Do they just sit around on their hand, or do they see an opportunity? When you take the Marxists and you combine them with the radical from Islam, When you combine those two forces, which is exactly, we'll show you this week, what is happening here, the whole world starts to implode. Does Russia push across this way? And what do we do? This is not just happenstance. This is not just poor people mad at rich people. This is coordinated. Tunisia was the beginning. I think there's a chance that Tunisia is our Archduke Ferdinand moment that I've been telling you about, warning that it would start in some place that wouldn't look like anything, and most of us wouldn't understand it. He was the guy assassinated in Sarajevo, June 1914. A month later, Austria and Hungary declared war against Serbia, and the rest is called World War I. I believe a snowball is being formed, and it is starting to roll. There are too many people that want to have their dream world. You're not going to be able to catch it, but you can at least prepare to not get caught in the snowball. I'm going to show you in a minute how this isn't Berlin. This is Iran, 1979. I'll show you why we really went to war in Iraq. It's not for weapons of mass destruction. And then if we have time, tonight we'll introduce you to our friend, Mubarak. Next. I just saw something. This is for something else that we were going to do on the show today. We're just not going to have time. But his Madman is Glenn Beck bad for America. It came from over a year ago. That's what they're going to print again, but I don't really care. I don't care if only 5 people watch the show this week. It is important. Radical Islam takes the Mediterranean and maybe large sections of Europe and begins a caliphate. That is what you're looking at if you are uninformed and if you let people just play the game that I believe is happening. It is the coming insurrection. And education and knowledge will empower you to make sure you don't fall into the trap. Now, I don't know if you've noticed the cries of the media saying that this Egyptian revolt is pro-democracy. But I can't think of anything that is more laughable. It is not pro-democracy. Now, maybe it is for some. I mean, the people have been abused by a brutal dictator. That is true. And I stand with the people of Egypt. But they're being played. Some said that this is like the Berlin Wall, but it's not. This isn't about freedom or democracy for the power players. We've seen all of this before. And the useful idiots that the students played in 1979. In 1979, under the iron fist of the U.S.-supported Shah of Iran, just like here, the Iranian Revolution began. And it began with students. And it was all supposedly about freedom as well. Well, now, of course, we know Iran is a hardline Islamic state. But how did it get there? For years, Iran was our staunchest ally in the Middle East. So close of an ally, in fact, that in 1979 or 77, President Jimmy Carter traveled to Tehran to have New Year's Eve dinner, toasting the Shah and his nation as an island of stability in the Middle East. The guy wasn't a good guy. Well, neither. It's hard for me to say that with these two on the screen. Anyway, 2 years later, he was in exile, and Iran was in the hands of radicals. In Iran, the Shah was a brutal, brutal dictator, torturing and killing thousands of his own people. Iranians had had enough. You cannot do that to people. So the students, who are always the ones to stand up for revolution, Lenin called them useful idiots, they stood up. But the media embraced their revolution because at first they introduced a moderate regime, complete with parliament to replace the Shah. And it would mean freedom for all the Iranians. That lasted for a full, solid month. 1 month. It lasted until Jimmy Carter cut the legs off the Shah and his inaction. And without the support from the U.S., the hardliners, led by the Ayatollah Khomeini, seized control and installed what he called God's government. There he is. The Ayatollah replaced the Shah's secret police with his own revolutionary guard. And freedom again eluded the people of Iran. being played. The people of Iran were being played. Under his watch, on November 4th, 1979, thousands of Iranians, mostly students, stormed the U.S. Embassy and took 66 hostages. One of those hostages says one of those students was Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. This is a crisis that would go on for the next 444 days. How many Americans know that's where Nightline started? It was all about this. Well, it's completely different from the freedom-loving, democracy-loving crowd in Egypt. Really? Well, you got me there. Iran was our key Middle Eastern ally, right? And now it's Egypt, right? In Iran, we got into bed with a nasty tyrant, the Shah of Iran. Now it's Mubarak. Yep, that's totally different. Tyrant and a tyrant. Revolution started with students in Iran. That's totally different because now it started with students in Egypt. Here's some shots of the protest in Iran. And here's some protest shots of Egypt. So we have, oh, there it is. Yep, completely different. I've been saying for a couple of years now, if you introduce hunger into this global powder keg, you will see it explode. Egypt has seen a spike in their cost of living, particularly in their food prices. 40% of their population earns less than $1 a day. You put into this mix the steps of the Muslim Brotherhood. But don't worry. No, listen. Here's a really smart dude that wants to run the country saying that they're not a threat.
The Muslim Brotherhood has nothing to do with the Iranian model, has nothing to do with extremism. They are part of the Egyptian society as much as the Marxist party here. I think this myth that has been perpetuated and sold by the regime has no iota of reality.
Okay, all right. So they just have as much credibility as the Marxists do. Oh, that probably will be another episode this week. This is the same situation we had in Iran in 1979, and it is repeating itself all over again. And it is being sold to America as a fight for freedom. How free are the people in Iran today? And if Egypt falls to hardliners, how far behind will Yemen be, and Algeria, and Saudi Arabia? Back in 1979, Iranians used to say, when the monster exits, the angels enter. After replacing one monster with another, does anyone in Iran still believe in angels?
The people hate him. He's supporting Israel. Israel is our enemy. We don't like him. And he's the first eye for them here. Israel and America supported him. We hate them all. We don't like them.
I actually saw that report yesterday afternoon. I wrote it down in my journal at 4:08 so we could pull that. It went on. It got worse. And the CNN journalist didn't ask a follow-up question. We always hear the reason they hate us is because we're rich and we don't help them, or that we're hoarding resources and raping the planet, or we're keeping people down. It's really none of those. I mean, sure, they might play a role here and there, but really there are two reasons that those in the Middle East hate us. First, to the extremist, we're infidels. In Islam, infidels are anyone who doesn't worship Allah. The fundamentalist extremists feel they need to wage war and behead all the infidels and bring them under the rule of Islamic law, otherwise known as Sharia law. That's what a caliphate would do. It is a system of government for the whole region under Sharia law. Second, and I think a more prevalent cause, and she kind of touched on it, we're hypocrites. We say that freedom is on the march, but then why are we supporting dictators? Which is it? It can't be both. You can't say that man should and can be free and yet make someone as brutal as Egypt's President Mubarak the second largest recipient of U.S. foreign assistance in the last 3 decades. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. This guy's a monster. Who are we supporting? Who else besides this guy? Mubarak has kept Egypt under emergency rule for 30 years. That's given him power to tap all the telephones at will, intercept mail, search people in places without warrants, detain suspects without a charge, just to name a few. Egypt ranked 98 out of 178 countries on the Corruption Perceptions Index. To give you an idea of how bad that is, China is 20 spots ahead of them at number 78. Keep reaching for the stars. They fixed elections. There have been attacks on the opposition voters by security forces. In 2005, Mubarak agreed to a multi-candidate presidential election, only to trump up fraud charges on his opponent, who then spent 3 years, there he is, in jail. There's also no freedom of the press there. The state dominates the broadcast media. Not a lot different here. The 3 leading newspapers are state-controlled. Editors are appointed by the president. And then you'd have to ask yourself, how can anyone think we actually care about human rights? How can anyone who is oppressed and hungry see the American flag and feel like it stands for freedom when you see your relatives? Well, I tell you what, you see the American flag as a symbol of freedom. I do as well. But I'm going to show you a couple of pictures of some human rights abuses under Mubarak, who is second in our aid. And you ask yourself, man, if I didn't know better, I'd think America was on the wrong side. We'll show you that next. We're just talking on the set here. If this is your first day trying to be sober as an alcoholic and you're watching this show, I apologize. Not the week for you. I know we're not giving you any answers tonight, but we'll get to them closer to the week. What I want to do, and I know I'm simplifying, so this is very difficult, and I'm going to get torn apart by all sides, but that's okay. Do your own homework. Don't take anything that I say at face value. Please do your own homework on this. This is meant as a jumping off point. A lot of our research you can find at glennbeck.com and our free email newsletter. We'll be sending it out. All right. We were telling you about Egypt's dictator, Mubarak. I've told you before that this riot is involving real people, but it's also being controlled by the socialist communists and by the Muslim Brotherhood. So you don't want it to go there, right, Glenn? Well, yeah, but you don't want it to go back to Mubarak. Let me give you some examples of recent human rights abuses under this guy's reign. In 2006, one blogger was arrested and then spent 4 years in prison because he insulted Islam and defamed President Mubarak. He's allegedly held in solitary confinement and he has been tortured. Mubarak's police force is ruthless. In 2009, one woman, Mona Thabit, went to the police to file a complaint that her husband had been tortured by the police. They responded by beating her and shaving her head and then burning her with cigarettes. There you go. Government closed the investigation, citing lack of evidence. Anybody else got a problem? Last June, this blogger in this poster, his name is Khalid Said. He was allegedly beat to death by 2 policemen, all because he posted a video on the internet that showed police officers taking drugs from a bust for themselves. He was so badly beaten that, if you have kids, please don't have them see this. This is a picture I would not normally show. I warn you, it's extremely graphic. It was taken by the AP, but you should see it because the government has explained that his death was caused by him choking on a joint during his arrest. I don't know if you can see, his teeth are this way. It is a horrific picture. Also, our rendition program, a program we created under Bill Clinton to clean our hands and outsource any kind of really nasty torturing. We send suspects on a ghost plane to be tortured in Egypt. We send many of them to Egypt. Obviously, they're experts. Is this the kind of country we are? These are our friends in the Middle East. Do I need to tell you any more about Mubarak? Should we get together and explain to the media why the people in the Middle East really hate us? Because it's not about our wealth. It's about our friends. We covered much of that today. Tomorrow, who's organizing the riots Is our government involved? What the role the Marxists playing and the Muslim Brotherhood? Things you need to hear. Coming up at 8 o'clock tonight, I'll be on with Bill O'Reilly. More of the same. And some new things as well from New York.